Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
Well, guys, for literally decades, we've been told there is one way for candidates to win, to be electable. You got to be as boring as possible, promise as little as possible, and cater to the center, which when uttered by Beltway media types means to carry water for corporate America. If you're a Democrat, make sure to engage in a little rhetorical hippie punching and actual warmongering so that everyone knows you are definitely not a communist. This theory of electability predates Bill Clinton, but he was really the guy that put it into full-scale practice. After 12 years of being shut out of the White House, Clinton won. So every Democratic candidate has it beat into them by the party leadership and by their media allies that the Clintonian, triangulating, screwing over your own base mode of politics is the only way to win. This theory of electability has been sold so thoroughly to the public that the Democratic base has been turned into a bunch of little mini pundits, evaluating candidates not based on their policy preferences, but on who they imagine and who the media tells them will be electable. But something very interesting has been happening recently. A few of the biggest Dem surprises in the midterms and outperformers are rejecting the Clinton mode of politics for a more outspoken, unapologetic, and economically populist approach. They are going after their opponents for their extreme positions on abortion, yes, but they are also putting promises to challenge corporate power at the very center of their pitch. So let me give you a couple of examples here. Last week, we brought you the story of Pat Ryan. He's an Army combat veteran, a local county official, and a Democrat. And he just shocked everyone by winning a special election in a swing district in upstate New York. Now, his victory was a huge surprise because, number one, this is a very closely divided district. It's also a supposedly bad year for Democrats, and his opponent was really considered quite strong. He's a moderate, longtime local county official with his own local base of support. Polls up to Election Day had Pat Ryan down by as much as 8 points. But then the Democrat prevailed ultimately by more than the Biden margin in that district. How did he do it? Well, the media analysis, ours included, focused understandably on Ryan's focus on abortion. True enough, hard to imagine him prevailing in this district before Roe was overturned, putting the GOP's abortion extremism front and center in our politics. But Pat Ryan wanted to make it clear that abortion was not his entire message. In an interview with Alex Wagner the day after his victory, he had this to say about which parts of his message resonated most in that district.
Our other ad that's gotten a little less sort of national attention, but really resonated at home, was about how our big corporate power utility was ripping off customers. I had a lot of people on the ground say that hit home for me, that I'm struggling to pay my utility bills, and this company is making record-breaking profits and paying no taxes. So we were doing both. We're providing relief, talking about what we're going to do to deliver on that relief, and stand up for people's freedoms on a foundational level. And that 1-2 combo, I think that is what we need to do, continue to do, and build on.
And so here was that ad he just referred to that made up half of his overall ad buy.
Big utility companies have a monopoly on our power, so they think they can do whatever they want. I'm Pat Ryan, and as Ulster County Executive, I use my power to hold greedy corporations accountable. Like when Central Hudson Utilities was ripping off our community. I called for an investigation and demanded they repay customers and freeze rate increases. I approve this message because big corporations have too much power. It's time our families had more.
And apparently he lived up to this rhetoric as Ulster County Executive, where he not only took on the price gouging of public utilities, but launched a pilot UBI program. And rather than run and hide like some other swing district Dems did when Biden announced he was canceling up to $20,000 in student debt, Ryan was unapologetic in defending the move, telling the Morning Joe ghouls that it was, quote, huge. So far, I'm pretty impressed, and apparently, so are the voters. Now, the other Dem outperformer this cycle is the big guy from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman. Now, Fetterman is a former Steeltown mayor who backed Bernie Sanders in the primary and who came to national prominence for trashing Republicans trying to steal the election for Trump in Pennsylvania. In the primary, he was up against the prototypical Clinton model corporate candidate, Conor Lamb. After Lamb won a swing congressional district, the Beltway media lavished praise on this guy and attention on him for his milquetoast donor-friendly politics, holding him up as the example all Democrats should emulate to get elected in tough districts. Literally every establishment figure lined up behind Lamb in that primary, and he proceeded to get absolutely destroyed by John Fetterman. It was a 30-point landslide rejection of the Dem establishment's golden boy, in spite of the fact that, as you know, Fetterman literally spent Election Day recovering from a stroke. Now Fetterman is up against Dr. Oz, and we have well documented Oz's terrible, cringe, crudité-centric campaign, as well as Team Fetterman's relentless and very effective trolling. But we spend less time focused on the affirmative parts of Fetterman's message. Take a listen at how he is presenting his agenda to the district.
I'm John Fetterman, and I approve this message. The truth is our economy is a mess because of Washington. The rich, powerful, the insiders, and the lobbyists, they're lying about me to take the heat off themselves. It's Washington's fault. They set the rules, weakened our supply chain, and spiked inflation. But we can fix our economy. We must make more stuff in America. Cut taxes for working families. Congress shouldn't play in the stock market and take on anyone that gets in the way. That's what I believe in.
Fight inflation, cut taxes for working families, make stuff here, ban stock trading for members of Congress, an unabashed challenge to corporate power, which is a massive break from typical Clintonian politics, and which again, apparently is really landing with voters. A look at Biden's trajectory in office tells a bit of a similar story, quite frankly. His approval ratings were highest at the beginning of his administration when he was handing out $1,400 checks, and they were lowest when he was letting Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema run the show on behalf of their donors. But now, Dark Brandon has taken control. All of a sudden, in the past several weeks, Biden got the CHIPS Act through, he passed money for toxic burn pit victims, he passed the so-called Inflation Reduction Act that included a big corporate tax hike and a lot of very solid consumer incentives. And now he's handing out up to $20K in debt cancellation, and there are rumors that the US is about to get back in the Iran nuclear deal. Listen, I've still got a million problems with this administration, but some of these items represent a real break with the corporate neoliberal politics of the Clinton years. Industrial policy, corporate tax hikes, debt cancellation, and a pugilistic rhetorical style that we have not really seen from Biden as president.
Is this unfair to people who paid their student loans or chose not to take out loans?
Is it fair to people who, in fact, do not own multi-billion-dollar businesses if you want these guys to get them all tax breaks? Is that fair? What do you think?
What about people who paid their loan?
Night and day from the Clinton approach. And oh, would you look at that? His poll numbers coming back up. And Democrats, they now have an outside shot to actually do well in the midterms. Challenging corporate power, leaning into economic populism, watching with glee as the Bezos editorial board melts down. It's good politics, guys. And if a few more Democratic candidates embrace this direction, they might well have a good year in the midterms. And if Biden continues to channel Dark Brandon, voters will happily re-elect him at any age, whether he can complete a sentence or not. So I guess, let's go, Brandon. So
LGB.
We have been talking a lot about cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.